Soulless Dead, Chapter 5, Time to Work. After our little jam session with the rest of the church community about our good friend the dead people walking around, and teaching them about what they are and telling them what to do, everybody had calmed down, but there was also this hair-trigger attitude around the church itself. A lot of people with a lot of guns made me a little nervous, considering a lot of them were ultimately inexperienced. I tell you, if something bad happened and somebody fired a shot, I guarantee you half of them will start opening fire at nothing. It got us all worried a little bit, but it was better that other people had guns. That way if something bad did happen, they'd be able to kill it first, hopefully if they could shoot. We really didn't have time to really teach anybody how to use a gun, but we felt somehow safer and yet more uneasy than we ever have. Some of us were card-carrying NRA people, and others were just gun enthusiasts, and it made every one of us a little scared. But we managed. That is, until the truck showed up. About 2 hours had passed, and we noticed that a large truck came to a screeching halt right in front of the church. Right in front of our barricade where all the cars were. A bunch of the men, including myself and my father, grabbed our guns, and we went outside. We went up and lined up in a skirmish line just behind the cars, pointing at the truck. It was a couple elders from our church that showed up rather late. They had their hands up, telling us not to shoot, waving their hands frantically. All the men put their guns down and were actually rather happy that they had showed up. They explained they just got back from a food run in the inner city of Wichita, and they were just horrified. Covered in blood, they had went with 2 other people that they had picked up along the way. They said they had lost them, and that one of them had broke their wrist, falling over. It was a mess. Everybody was nervous, but we were also very happy. They had showed up with quite a bit of food, and quite a bit of water and supplies, including medical supplies, which I was sure was to become a commodity quite quickly. They told us that they were at the Wesley Medical Center, downtown Wichita. They said that there were medical tents and there were a scrimmage line of military, but it had gotten overrun. They had watched it from a small bank just adjacent to the medical company. They saw how they got overrun and the dead had started to chase people that were running away. When the coast had cleared, they had snuck their way into the building and started grabbing bagfuls of stuff. Anything you could think of. IVs, surgery equipment, scalpels. You name it, they had it. They even grabbed some snacks and some food and whatever they could find. They went to their pickup truck parked just over yonder away from everything. They even grabbed some bullets and some ammo from a local ammo dump over by where the military garrison had been set up. They told us it got pretty bloody and they met a couple of survivors that had been hiding behind a old Humvee. They said that they were one of the few that were survivors. They said that their wives and kids were the ones that were infected. Unfortunately, they turned. There were 8 of them originally that were hiding, but some of them got picked off, and the only thing they could do was run and hide and watch in terror as their friends were ripped apart. God, I don't envy those guys. They told us that they were safe now and that they had plenty of stuff. Eventually, on the way home, though, they got ambushed by a couple bikers. They shot out the tire, and they got into a gunfight. The 2 men that were with them had opened fire on them with some rudimentary handguns that they had picked up. And most of the bikers were killed, but they were shot to death. The 2 men that were trying to help perfectly random strangers ended up dying. And for what? Some snacks and some food? A couple IV bags full of saline solution? Our church elders ended up killing the rest of the bikers and changed the tire and got the heck out of there. They ended up getting to the church just barely. Apparently in the firefight, one of the elders had dove out of the truck and landed on his wrist and snapped it. Luckily, there was a nurse in our church, and she was able to reset it. I can tell you, there were some less than choice words coming out of his mouth that moment. But that's beside the point. They told us we needed to go on food runs because none of this would last too long, and the volume of people that we had, if you did the math, it made a lot of sense. There were more than 50 people in the church with us, plus more coming and showing up by the hour. And, well, we knew that it had to come down to that. We piled in a couple trucks and went. It was like a convoy in Iraq, Just a bunch of men ready to go to battle, nervous as all get out. We made our way into the city, slowly but surely. Nobody was there, it seemed. It was a ghost town, and we had broken into a Walmart. You used to be surprised. A lot of the doors were already broken open, and a lot of stuff was gone. But I think the common misconception was that everybody would just shut up inside a store and live it off. But judging by the bullet holes everywhere, people fought over it so much that they said to heck with it and left. We grabbed a bunch of shopping carts and we started to make our way in. Us being inexperienced, a couple of those things started coming out of the woodwork. You could just see them pouring out. A fight ensued and we started firing. Shells flying everywhere, bullets whizzing by. Those things were dropping like flies. I myself was running to the front, clubbing them down and bashing their heads in, pushing them off of me. One tried to bite through my arm guard. Thank God for that thing. I slammed him to the ground, slinging him off of my arm, and it fell. I drew one of my smaller knives and stuck it right through his head. I left the knife there because 6 more were starting to chase me. I grabbed my revolver and put a bullet in each one of their heads. Each one of them exploded like fireworks, sending brain matter everywhere. Of course, then again, a .357 round will do that. This made us more frantic, and we grabbed as much food as we could and got the heck out of there. While as we were getting out, a bunch of people had already shown up, plus some more dead. They were shooting and firing. They couldn't decide who'd shoot at, us or them. I hid behind a column just outside the Walmart, and as we were getting shot out, my cart was getting lit up, and a lot of the cereal bags and stuff that I had grabbed were getting spilled everywhere. So much for that. Other men were entrenched behind the doors, shooting back at the people. And the funny thing is that our assailants were actually shooting from both sides. A lot like Nazi Germany during World War II. They were getting attacked from the back, from the zombies, and from us, from the other side. They were shooting at us, and I was pissed. The bullets were whizzing by. I could hear them hissing and whizzing as they deflected off of the banister I was hiding behind. One of my legs was sticking out, and I got tagged right in the leg. You know, they say that it will debilitate you completely when you get shot, but the shock from the bullet itself and the adrenaline pumping from fear, the fight-or-flight response was being overloaded with anger. Why would people want to kill us? Don't you think we should be sticking together? And the angrier I got, the more my blood rushed. I gritted my teeth. I could feel my teeth shake, about to crack. I could see my hands doubling up. I drew my pistol and reloaded it. I put my knife back in the holster and I stood up. At first, the bullet, when it went in, burned a little. And it stung. But when your adrenaline's going, you didn't feel hardly anything. I put weight on it and I felt a tense shock in my leg, but I still put more. Blood started to ooze out of my leg. I leaned around and fired, tagged a guy less than 10 feet away as he was running up to try to take cover where I was at. I shot him right in the head and it dropped him. It dropped him so fast that I couldn't see anything. A red haze misted up, and I pushed his body out of the way. I lay down behind him where he was laying and took him for cover. A rather despicable thing to do, but I fired on the other people. The other church members moved up, and a couple other people started to move up on the other side. We'd shot, and the shooting started to peter out as some of the people hiding behind cars that were trying to kill us started to get killed by the things that they were trying to fight against as well. We could hear them screaming and getting bit and whatnot, but we weren't doing a thing about it. Instead, we rushed our supplies back into the trucks and to the cars that we had, and we sped off and left them for dead. All the while I was driving off, we were speeding. My breathing had become feverish. I was sweating, I was shaking. My dad had told me to pull over, and I told him that I wasn't going to. He told me to pull over, and he grabbed the wheel. We put it in park, and he told me to pull my leg out as we had opened the side door. My leg was bleeding profusely, and the pain had started to set in. My dad said we had to get the slug out, and so we did something that I wasn't really happy about. He pulled his pocket knife out and dug the knife into the wound after pouring a little bit of alcohol that we got off the shelves on his blade. It hurt so bad. One side of me grabbed the oh shit handle on the car and the other one on the wheel, and I gritted it to where the leather was actually getting curled. I broke off the oh shit bar, and sure enough, it makes plenty of sense when you're trying to dig a small pistol slug out of your leg. He wrapped it as tight as he could and had me get into the passenger seat, where he drove. The rest of the way I was popping painkillers like Mentos. Eventually it started to peter out, and I passed out from the amount of drugs that was in my system, more so than what killed Kurt Cobain. I tell you what, putting a bullet in my head would have been better than having to deal with infection or even getting killed by zombies, but you know what it is. Of course, then again, Kurt Cobain got lucky. He got killed before all this crap started. Then I started to think, why the hell am I thinking about Kurt Cobain? I've got a slug in the leg, we just got into a firefight, we barely got out of there alive. And we just killed a bunch of people. Well, at least I survived. As the painkiller started to set in, I just passed out. Before I knew it, we were in Rose Hill and I was being carried into the building. I was lucky because it had gone into the shallow part of the outside of my thigh and escaped, so it was easy to fix. The bullet had fragmented, and they did get all the bullet out, but it was definitely painful. They wrapped up my leg and made it a little more clean and did what they could. We unloaded the supplies, and I was taking a little bit of much-needed R&R. And I tell you, that was probably one of the most rushing and most exciting experiences of my life. As a kid, I had gotten shot at and saw a lot of people die. Being a preacher's kid, you see people die. I've seen people drown, I've seen people get run over, and at one VBS in a ghetto church my dad was trying to revive, I saw a man get his head blown off. I become so jaded to that fact, but still it was there. The nightmares would happen for a while, but I got used to it. You know, the old cop saying, it's better them than me, and it couldn't be more true now. I could feel myself losing grip on reality, but I kind of liked it. It made things more real and it gave me purpose. Remember the loser that would sit and watch TV and struggled to find a job and all that kind of stuff? I was a good shot. I had some military training. And I knew how to fight. I had the gear and I was ready to go. I found meaning. Sure, my back hurt. I couldn't join the Marine Corps. Couldn't join the Army, and I couldn't do anything else. But at least this gave me some purpose. Some much needed purpose. And it felt so good and it felt so wrong at the same time. But you take it for what it is and you use it to your best. You make yourself stronger. You push through the weak stuff and you get it done. That bullet wound could have been a lot worse. I'm glad I took that bullet. It woke me up. It made things more real. It made me realize that the dead wasn't the only thing we had to worry about. It made me realize how ugly people in this world can get when their comforts are taken away. And it made me realize one thing. That if I'm not careful, I could turn into one of them. But I sure was happy. Those freaking painkillers. They felt so nice, and coupled with me snagging a little bottle of crack and mixing that together. Again, going against the warning label with pills and alcohol, I took a couple sips and, well, passed out. Never been drunk before. Between the few sips that I did get of the alcohol and the immense amount of painkillers that were in my system, I could have dropped a bull elephant. Of course, I was never really a drunk, but that high from those painkillers made me more loopy than Fruit Loops. It was actually kind of nice. At the same time, I was a little worried. But then I drifted off into much needed sleep. Made me forget all about my insomnia. Had a pretty nice dream, and it was really relaxing. It's amazing how you could be on cloud 9 in such an ugly, horrible world. It was like drifting into a little patch of heaven in the deepest, darkest pits of hell. And somehow I found it sickeningly relaxing, like I was on a beach. It's strange how that can happen, isn't it?